Hello. I want to explain how to rewrite a rhythm from 6/8 to 3/4 and the other way around. So if we look at it mathematically, 6/8 notes, like in 6/8 meter, there are 6/8 notes in a measure. And of course, 6/8 notes are equivalent to 3/4 notes. But in music, the meters are not the same because the beats are not the same. So in a 6/8 meter is a compound meter, uh, in which the dotted quarter note is the beat, and there are two beats in it. So it's also a compound duple meter. It's a duple meter because there are two beats in it. This is beat one, this is beat two. So the equivalent of a dotted quarter is the beat, right? So the beginning of each of the starting point essentially, or the sounding point of each beat would be emphasized. In 3/4, we have 3/4 notes, and usually in 3/4, it may be a little bit slower, but regardless, beat one is emphasized, beats two and beats three not. But so if let's look at the second measure first. So if the second measure would be rewritten in 3/4 meter, of course they all remain eighth notes, right? That means, in fact, all the sounding durations remain the same. But specifically in measure 2, the eighth notes remain eighth notes. But the beaming will be different. Why? Because in music we beam together what belongs to the same beat. In 6/8 meter, 3/8 notes belong to the same beat, so they're beamed together. So we have two beats. In 3/4 meter, we would have three sets of 2/8 notes that are beamed together. And I will show the solution in just a second. So in 3/4 meter, so if we look at the measure 3, in 3/4 meter, the three beats would be 1, 2, 3. And so these two eighths notes belong to the same beat in 3/4 meter, so they should be beamed together. In 6/8, they cannot be beamed together because this first eighth note belongs to the first beat, and the second eighth note belongs to the second beat. So these two eighth notes cannot be beamed together in 6/8 meter, right? Um, and so on. So it's essentially about beaming, but of course it's about the music and the music making, because we would emphasize the rhythm differently. So let me show the solution for this one. So again, the sounding durations stay exactly the same, but we need to group together what belongs to the same beat. Now, sometimes it is possible in 3/4 meter to write a dotted quarter note and then 1/8 note that is flagged, or one can write a quarter note that is tied to an eighth note, followed by the second eighth note. So note that these two eighth notes belong to the same beat, to the second beat in 3/4 meter. That's why they are beamed together. And then the last two in 3/4 meter belong to the same beat, so they're beamed together. Whereby in 6/8, again, this is beat 1, and this is beat 2. So this is the first measure. The second measure, as I explained earlier, need to be grouped in three groups of each 2/8 notes, and the 2/8 notes are beamed together. And measure 3, again, these 2/8 notes belong together, so they are beamed together in 3/4 meter, but they don't belong together in 6/8 meter. So they are flagged. And the last measure, the first 2/8 notes belong to the same beat, so they're beamed together, followed by an eighth and another eighth that is tied to a quarter note, creating the sounding duration of a dotted quarter. Now, do we sometimes see in music notation a flagged eighth note followed by a dotted quarter? Yeah, occasionally, but this is a better convention to write. So in short, we don't actually change any durations. We have to rewrite it to follow the rules of rhythmic grouping and beaming. So one more example. Here I have a 3/4 meter that is given, and the task is to rewrite it in 6/8. And so in 3/4 we have 3 beats. But if this would translate into 6/8, these two eighths notes have to be separated. They cannot be beamed together because they belong to different beats. And this, in measure 2, the quarter note would have to be split apart because it belongs, the first half of it belongs to the first beat and the second half of it belongs to the second beat. So how to do that I will show in a second. The third measure would actually not change, but the fourth measure would change because, again, the second quarter note, the first half of it belongs to the first beat and the second half to the second beat. So we would have to split them into 2/8 notes and tie them together. So the solution would be here. Let me start with the last one. So we split the quarter note into 2/8 notes, into two flagged eighths notes, not beamed because they belong to different beats, and then we tie them together. So we have 2 beats in 6/8. This is beat 1, and this is beat 2, right? And we have to see a starting note when a new beat starts. So if we would just copy what we had in 3/4, that would not be the case. We have to have a starting note when the second beat starts. Going backwards, I said the measure can just be copied because here the dotted quarter is beat 1 and the eighth and the following quarter is beat 2. Here the 16th and the 8th was one entire beat, but we actually need half the quarter note for the second beat in 6/8. So we have to split the quarter note into 2/8 notes, which are then beamed to each side and tied together to recreate the duration, the sounding duration of a quarter note. But we have to show that there is a note when the second beat starts, right? So we have to follow the rules of rhythmic grouping and beaming. And again here, all we had to do is dissolve the beam and write the eighth notes as flags, and that way the first eighth note belongs to the first beat, the second eighth note to the second beat. They cannot be beamed together in 6/8 meter. So anyways, that is it. Have fun practicing.